Connecting to your Mongo database instance was the first step. The real magic of the Mongoose module is its ability to define a document schema. As you already know, MongoDB uses collections to store multiple documents, which aren't required to have the same structure as one another. However, when dealing with objects, it is sometimes necessary for documents to be similar. Mongoose uses a schema object to define the document list of properties, each with its own type and constraints in order to enforce the document structure. After specifying a schema, you will go on to define a model constructor, which you'll use to create instances of MongoDB documents. In this section, you'll learn how to define a user schema and model, and how to use a model instance to create, retrieve, and update user documents. Creating the user schema and model. To create your first schema, go to App Models folder and create a new file named user server model.js. In this file, paste the following lines of code. So I'll copy this, get out a full screen, get TeamViewer, go over to our server. This is one thing, see, we still got that server running. I forgot, this is the slow machine. While it's loading that, we're also going to want brackets open. Processing request. Take a second to open either of those. I'm not sure what happened to the last 3 episodes yesterday. I covered some good material and put them in the notes, but I only recorded like 5-minute snippets, and surely that's not everything we were going over. But I'm not going to worry about going backwards. If I didn't get it, I didn't get it. I mean, I got it in my head, and I got it in my notes, I just didn't get it on the video. But we're clocked back in and at it this morning, so if you missed those samples, go to the link at the bottom of the screen and try it for yourself. Sorry I couldn't show you everything. What I'm looking for here is what I just knew he was going to need this open, and that's what we had open last time. What we're really needing to do is follow the instructions. To create your first schema, go to the App Models folder. Okay, we're going to create a new file. That was it. Back on TeamViewer. New. Throw our contents that we copied. Just paste it in there. Now it wants us to save it. We're going to save it. We've been working on our desktop. And 3.3. Okay, where'd it say? App Models. So it's in here, app. So that was one thing I noticed the other day on their version didn't have models. Can we add one here? There's a folder, right? To create your first schema, go to the App Models folder and create a new file. This is what we're going to want next. We can put it in Models folder. User server model JavaScript. Okay, so we're going to go to App, create models, and save this file. objects plural. We'll go in there, save this file name, user server model JavaScript. Okay, now we're there. Now we're up to date. Create your first schema, go to app models folder and create a new file named. In this file, paste the following line of code. That's what we just did. Let's read what we pasted. Mongoose equals require mongoose. That makes sense. Schema. They capitalized this one. And this one's capitalized. Schema equals mongoose schema. Constant user schema equals new schema. So this one is referring to this one. First name needs to be a string. Last name needs to be a string. Email should be a string. Username should be a string. Password should be a string. Mongoose model user. User schema. Mongoose model. User schema. Okay, so user is passed in as an argument, and user schema is passed in as user schema. It's passed in as this argument, and that's a new schema which it's getting from here, and it's getting that from referencing here. Okay, so all that's just chain linking this up. User is probably coming from I wonder if user's probably coming from schema. Is it? It's probably coming from mongoose. It's coming from somewhere up the chain. In the preceding code snippet, you did two things. First, you defined your user schema object using the schema constructor. Then you used the schema instance to define your user model. Note that for simplicity, you did not start your egg timer. 7, so about 18, 17. Okay. It's easy to get lost in the material, lose track of time, but we'll try and keep on 25-minute Pomodoros. In the preceding code snippet, you did two things. First, you defined your user schema object using the schema constructor, and then you used the schema instance to define your user model. Note that for simplicity reasons, we save the password as clear text. However, in real-world applications, the user password should be properly encrypted. Next, you'll learn how to use the user model to perform CRUD operations in your application's logical layer. Registering the user model. And my mug's solid today. There, it's got a little sparkle in it. You could see through it yesterday. You could see the window behind. You can see a little bit of that blue window coming through behind it there. So I mean, how that blue window's come out the other side now. Oh well, it's not what they're on clock for. Now it's time to trim this up. It keeps getting caught in my coffee. Maybe like a braid or something. Hold it back. I don't want to shave it because it filters all the stuff that makes me sneeze. Helps filter that out when I have to work outside, especially. Alright. In the preceding code snippet, you did two things. First, you defined your user schema object using the schema constructor, and then you used the schema instance to define your user model. Note that for simplicity reasons, we save the password as clear text. Next, you'll learn how to use the user model to perform CRUD operations in your application's logic layer. Did we save the password? It's just as a string. We've just got the schema, we're not saving the data yet. Before you can start using, I love the way this book anticipates where I'm going. Maybe I'm just getting good at anticipating where the book's going. Either way, that's a good sign, I like it. Oh wait, sponge. There's a sponge. Yeah, there's a sponge that goes on the mic. That might help the sound a little bit. One of the earliest videos, the guy said, I don't know if you got health problems, man. Your breathing sounds awful. So I don't mean to offend you. Yeah, you didn't offend me. I've got a bad mic, I guess. gets close to my mouth and I breathe. There's a sponge that goes over the end of it, though, but I always knock it off, usually by accident. I don't sit on there. I don't sit to put it on either. Oh well, it'll show up. It usually does. But it's so easy to knock off. I might try and use like a little super glue, not super glue, some kind of glue, or some tape, something to hold the sponge on the end of the microphone. Might help clear up our audio a little bit, or soften the audio a little. Either way, oh well. But yeah, there's a little tip right here. There's a sponge that goes over it, but it's so easy, it slides right off. There's nothing to hold the sponge to give it grip on the plastic. So, if any of you guys don't know how to do code but need $1 million idea, figure out how to get sponge to grip the plastic, and then license it to 3M. The sponge will show up. It's probably rolled under the desk somewhere. Fell onto a spare keyboard on a lower shelf. Alright. Why is reading so hard? Let's get focused here. We passed in the password and just the schema. Okay, registering the user model. Before you can start using the user model, you'll need to include the user server model JavaScript file in your Mongoose configuration file in order to register the user model. To do this, change your configure Mongoose JavaScript file to look like what is shown in the following code snippet. Let's copy that out. It's on the clipboard. Constant configure constant Mongoose module exports return database. Right here, it's adding this line. You can see it's in a slightly brighter white. That's a bold font. So it's going to change it to look like this. And just to be sure, we'll do all of it. But where we're taking it, user server model. Okay. User server model. User server model. You can leave off the JS. Okay, so before we can use that file that we just created, user server model JavaScript extension. Before we can use that, we got to go to this configure Mongoose JS, which is over here. I bet it's that one. Configure Mongoose JS. Return database. Yep, constant module exports return database. And approve a point. There it is. Everything's the same. Module exports function. Constant database equals mongoose connect configure dot database. Oh, check this out. Not all the IDEs I've seen have this, but you can go return database and return data. How did I get there? Is it control? There's a key for this. Now I've got two. Turn. Hello. I'm double typing. It's like when Bart Simpson gets the thing that holds like 5 pieces of chalk, so you can fill up the chalkboard quicker, because you can actually keep going. Oh, there, I did turn that one off. So I've got 5 spots. Here's my 5 pieces of chalk, and I'll say, so this little trick, very rarely need it for anything, but it just made me think of it because I was reading the code at 2 different points, and I was thinking that's like the cursor that does. So all I was really doing was reading through, like, I was reading this line in my head, but at the same time I was reading this line with the cursor. So then constant database mongoose connect configure DB, and then the return database. So the only thing that we're missing is just to require that they had in bold, and we're gonna need a little space around it. They've got one below it. We'll just go from here. There. Now we're identical. Well, now we're doubled. We don't need all this extra. Booyah. Control save. We should be back up to the text. Where are we at on time? Got another 10 minutes. Alright. Return database. Make sure that your Mongoose configuration file is loaded before any other configuration is performed in the server.js file. This is important since any module that is loaded after this module will be able to use the user model without loading it by itself. This is important since any module that is loaded after this module will be able to use the user module without loading it by itself. Okay. Make sure that your Mongoose configuration file is loaded before any other configuration is performed in the server.js. Server.js, that's the main file we were working with in chapter 3 or chapter 2. Both. Let's go look at the server.js since I said it's important. Let's take a look at that and see what's going on there. Which one did they say? Make sure that your Mongoose configuration file is loaded before any other configuration is performed. It's near the top. The only other thing that gets loaded before that is the environment. So they really want us, it looks like we've got it in the right spot. Surely they don't want us to move it before the environment, but maybe they do. So just a little mental note. It's near the top. It's the second one, technically. Before any other configuration is performed. Any module that is loaded after this module will be able to use the user model without loading it by itself. So if we run into any errors, that's one thing to keep in mind. We might need to move our Mongoose in front of our environment, but I don't think so. I think environment's not considered, well, it is considered configuration before any other configuration. Right, so just mental note, we may or may not need to rearrange that. Creating new users using save. You can start using the user model right away, but to keep things organized, it is better that you create a users controller that will handle all user related operations. In the app controllers folder, create a new file, name, and paste the following lines of code. So we'll get the code first. Just learn from experience. I tried to do the file name first, and the workflow feels backwards to me. Technically, you could do it either way, whatever's comfortable for you, but I'm going to go new, throw what we just copied into there, and then save it as whatever it tells us to save it as. So now it's telling us to save it. It is better that you create a users controller in the app controllers folder. Create a new file named. We get the file extension here, and paste the following lines of code. In the app controllers, we should already have that directory. there. User save error function. If error, return next error, else response status 200 JSON user. Let's go over this code. Yes, let's do that. That's what we're here to learn. Time, we got about 4 minutes. And where are we at on the page? We're still so near the top. Look, so this bar right here, we've just covered this much. Creating new user using save. First, you used the Mongoose module to call the model method, which will return the user model you defined previously. Next, you create a controller method named create, which you will later use to create new users. Using the new keyword, the create method creates a new model instance, which is populated using the request body. Finally, you call the model instance's save method, which either saves the user and outputs the user object or fails it, passing the error to the next middleware. To test your new controller, let's add a set of user-related routes that call the controller's methods. Begin by creating a file named inside the app routes folder. In this newly created file, paste the following lines of code. Same routine, so we'll go new, paste copied code, file, save as. Finish this out. I want to see if that Mongoose is even running. I didn't feel good about that. I mean, I felt good, but I just think we can confirm it. There. You can almost completely see the mug. That's kind of weird. Kind of neat. Ironic that the colors are all so close. The grays and the greens. It's like the computer's about as colorblind as I am. Where did it tell us to save it? App routes with this name. App routes with this name. Alright. Since your Express application will serve mainly as a RESTful API for the Angular JavaScript application, it is a best practice to build your routes according to the REST principles. In this case, the proper way to create a new user is to use an HTTP post request to the base user's route you defined here. Change your configure express.js file to look like what is shown in the following code snippet. Trying to look for what's bolded. Right there it is. Near the end, we're going to add this line. Require app route. After index, we'll add the route users. That's it. To test it, go to your root application folder and execute the following command. We're going to have to make a post. We'll save that for next episode because I don't... Okay, we were doing the post through the JSON shell. It doesn't really tell us how to make a mongoose post. I mean, so here we're posting that in. I'm gonna have to review this a little bit. I feel a little lost right there on how to put that in. It words it like it's already showed us. We'll have to go back and look. Maybe there's an index and we can, let's do that. Is there an index? Let's finish up what it was telling us first. We're in the middle of an instruction. Okay, we got this and we're gonna put it into change your config express JavaScript. It's near the bottom. We've already got the index, require the routes index. So we're just going to add another route, require users. Okay, we should save that. Okay, this is the part that got confusing to me. We've added that line right here. And that's it. Okay, so now we're going to go to your root application folder and execute the following command. I think we're already there really. But we'll have to kill it and restart it. That was wrong. There's what I wanted. Because we're already running here. I finally got that browser. I opened it, but I never loaded it. So it's running that right now. But that wouldn't include all the changes we just made. Let's do Control C. Gets us out. We're still working. It's a copy of 3.3, so yeah, we're still working there. I was thinking it'd be called Chapter 5, but I guess not yet. So, let's see, up arrow is node server. Now we're just loading the changes we just made. Missing schema. So that's what I was thinking before. So oh, just reloading the server probably didn't do all that. Let's try the nipm install. Probably could have done a nipm update. Let's run through that and see what we get. But even after that, I'm not sure how we're going to input the post. I mean, we could go back and try what it showed us for posting to Mongo, but I thought the whole point was to post through Mongoose. And we've connected to the code to do Mongoose for us. Okay, we did the install. Let's just try node server again. So if we can at least get it running. Looks like it's trying to do something. And it's still giving us the schema. Index JavaScript 349. Throw new mongoose error missing schema error name. So let's go to index JavaScript 349. This is the best way to debug a node apparently. So when it throws you that error, it tells you where it's throwing it from. Oh, library index JavaScript 349. Node modules. Index JavaScript 349. That's not actually my code, that's the reference to the node module, so it's probably... Keep reading through here and see if there's any other... Missing schema error. Schema hasn't been registered. But I just didn't save one of these files. I pasted it in but didn't save it. Let's try file. Let's just do save all. Because I don't want to have to look for which one it was. So let's try this again. Let's try update this time. Should be the same thing really. Because update will install anything that's not been installed. That is the update, is to install what's not been installed. Or that's how it, yeah. The best way to update something that's not installed is to install it with the most recent version. Okay, let's try that one more time. Node server. Still not liking something. It's the same error. Schema hasn't been registered for model user. There's a part in the text where it talked about registering. I might go back. That's another good thing about recording the video for everything. I can go back and watch. Maybe I can see myself making a mistake. Registering the user model. Before you can start using the user model, you'll need to include this user server model.js file in your Mongoose configuration file in order to register the user model. To do this, change your config Mongoose.js file to look like what is shown in the following code snippet. I remember doing that. Are we in the right directory, even? Let's look at that for a second. Desktop, chapter 3, I think that's where I've been working with everything at. Alright, I'm gonna wrap this up for now. Well, it's obviously got a bug going on, but I never felt good about the confirmation on, so yeah. We may spend the next episode or two just reviewing and making sure we're caught up. I mean, I understand the principle, but what we can also do, where we at? 35. So there's the 10 minutes that I was off since last weekend. That should balance our time out. I'll go ahead and stop recording.